Coming up in just a moment at 6:30, it's Marketplace. On the show tonight, homeowners' insurance premiums have gone way up, especially in areas most vulnerable to climate change-related events. Real estate and climate change, that's coming up next on Marketplace in just a moment at 6:30. We'll be back with all things considered at 7. Sorry for the lack of clip there. 37 degrees right now. It's cloudy in lower Manhattan. We'll see temperatures in the low 30s overnight tonight. For tomorrow, Christmas Eve, we're likely to see a high of about 40 degrees in the afternoon. It's going to get pretty windy through the day. We'll see wind gusts up to about 35 miles an hour, but the wind should die down in time for tomorrow night in Santa Claus. We're going to see temperatures probably around 32 yet again for tomorrow night. Happy holidays. We hope you stay with us. You're listening to WNYC. It's Tuesday at 6:30.
Hi, I'm Emily Nadal, digital producer at New York Public Radio. 2025 was one of the most challenging years we've ever faced, but thanks to your support, we're still going strong. Thank you. We couldn't do it without you.
WNYC, independent journalism in the public interest. 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com.
The shutdown delayed federal data train keeps rolling. Today's delivery, GDP. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by the United States Postal Service, offering holiday postage stamps for purchase at checkout at over 40,000 participating supermarkets and drugstores and at wholesale clubs Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, and BJ's. And by Odoo, dedicated to providing software designed to scale with businesses. Odoo's programs for manufacturing, accounting, and more aim to provide building blocks for creating a custom software suite. Odoo, what businesses need.
In Denver, I'm Amy Scott, in for Kai Rizdal. It's Tuesday, December 23rd. Good to have you with us. The U.S. economy grew at a robust clip in the third quarter. From July to September, GDP grew by an annualized 4.3%. That's according to a delayed initial estimate from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, more hangover from the federal shutdown. And though that figure will go through revision before it's final, it's the highest quarterly number in 2 years, boosted mostly by consumer spending. But GDP data has been a bit noisy all year, as the Trump administration's tariff policies have made for big swings in imports and exports. Marketplace's Henry Epp dug into the details.
There's one number deep in the GDP report that a lot of economists like to look at to get a real sense of how the economy is doing.
So this is the real final sales to private domestic purchasers, which is a mouthful.
Shannon Grein is an economist at Wells Fargo. What this real final sales number measures is basically just consumer spending and investments made by private companies. And in the third quarter, this number, real final sales, was up 3%. That's pretty good.
You had this underlying domestic spending that just kind of continued to grow at a pretty robust clip through Q3.
Despite lots of people feeling pretty bad about the economy, we just keep spending.
I sort of think of this as a continuation of a theme in the post-pandemic world where households are just going to continue to spend until they're somewhat forced not to.
Some people are reaching that point, says Michael Pierce, chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics. Despite upward momentum in the economy,
a lot of that momentum hasn't really been matched by income growth in the third quarter. I think that's telling us something about the shape of the consumer and who is behind some of that strength.
It's telling us, Pierce says, that the economy is splitting.
Higher income households versus lower income, older households versus younger households, those with a job versus those without a job.
And this unevenness isn't just among households, it's happening among businesses and sectors, too. Mike Fratantoni, chief economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association, says take, for example, capital investment.
Lots of spending on new AI-related development, but other aspects of construction really have cut back.
like home building and construction of commercial buildings that aren't data centers. But spending by certain businesses, consumers, and the government kept the economy running through the end of September. Stephen Blitz, chief U.S. economist at Global Data TS Lombard, though, is skeptical that this can continue.
You just simply can't have overall robust spending in an environment where payrolls are declining.
And according to the latest job numbers, payrolls haven't really expanded since April. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
On Wall Street, the major indices expanded on this Christmas Eve. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. Barring some last-minute change, which looks unlikely, Congress is letting the enhanced subsidies that help people buy insurance on the Affordable Care Act marketplace expire at the end of the month, which means it's going to cost millions of people double, triple, or even more to buy health insurance for 2026. And that has left some looking for cheaper alternatives. Marketplace's Samantha Fields reports now on what you might want to know if you're one of those people.
Amy Killalay knows more about health insurance than most people. They're a research professor at Georgetown's Center on Health Insurance Reforms and a consumer advocate to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. They've also bought their own ACA insurance through the marketplace.
And I just must have ended up on some list. So I get calls from brokers all the time.
Brokers trying to sell health insurance plans, especially this time of year during open enrollment.
It'll start with a text. Are you looking for cheap coverage with unlimited provider network, right? And then I text back. I'm like, of course I am. I would love to learn more.
For research. Often, Killalay will then ask,
can you tell me, is this a ACA regulated marketplace plan? And they'll say, I can tell you about marketplace plans, but I also want to talk to you about plans that we have that are on our private exchange.
That is a red flag, Killalay says, because there is no such thing as a private exchange.
That's a made-up term, and they're using the term exchange because that is another term for the marketplace. So right away, you're confusing the consumer.
Sometimes Killalay gets on the phone with brokers to see what they'll say.
They're telling me about marketplace coverage, and they lift it up as like, wow, it's so expensive. You can't afford that, I bet. Let's look over here at this other coverage that's going to be so much cheaper.
The thing is, cheaper coverage, the holy grail so many people are looking for right now, does not exist. There are things that might seem like alternatives to the insurance you can buy on healthcare.gov or your state's exchange. Short-term limited duration plans, direct primary care, healthcare sharing ministries, fixed indemnities. But Killalay says none of them offer comprehensive medical coverage or protect you from massive medical bills. And Lucy Culp at the nonprofit Blood Cancer United says people often don't realize that.
With all of these plans, we see marketing that really is confusing, right? They use a lot of the same words. They use words like premiums, like deductibles, like cost sharing, co-pays, co-insurance.
But she says it's misleading. Take accepted benefit or fixed indemnity plans.
These are things that kind of were originally designed to be like a supplement. So if you were hospitalized, that plan would pay you to help with those out-of-pocket costs that your insurance might not cover.
But if you just buy a fixed indemnity plan and don't otherwise have insurance, it won't pay your actual hospital bills. Then there are short-term limited duration plans, which you can now buy for longer than a few months, and which can seem on the surface like a cheaper, viable alternative to an ACA plan.
But because they aren't subject to the ACA's patient protections, they have pretty limited benefits. They can deny coverage for pre-existing conditions.
ACA plans cannot deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. And Joshua Brooker at the National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals says they also have to cover 10 essential health benefits, things like preventive screenings, emergency room visits, and prescription drugs, which short-term plans do not.
The big thing I always try to explain, anything outside of the Affordable Care Act means that it unchecks something.
that it won't cover one or all of those essential health benefits we've all come to expect from insurance. And with alternatives far outside the insurance world, like healthcare sharing ministries, where you pay into a pot with lots of other people and then submit medical bills and ask the group to pay them, there are no guarantees, Brooker says, and no recourse if your bill doesn't get paid. Amy Killalay at Georgetown understands why people are looking for cheaper options outside the marketplaces, but says you'd be taking a big risk.
That one, your insurance product, whatever you bought, is what it says it is, right? That you were sold something, that you understood what it was, and it is what you think it is.
And two, that nothing major is going to happen to you. No cancer diagnosis, no heart attack, no car accident.
That's like, an order of one too many risks for me. I think I would choose still the regulated markets.
However imperfect and expensive they might be. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
If you own a home, or maybe you're hoping to buy one, you've probably noticed something creeping up quietly alongside mortgage payments, or maybe not so quietly. It's homeowners insurance. And at the root of the problem is the growing risk of climate disasters. Benjamin Keys is a professor of real estate and finance at the Wharton School, where he's been studying the climate effects on insurance and the housing market, and recently published some new research quantifying those effects. Ben, good to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you compiled this new data set based on mortgage escrow payments. First of all, explain what those are and what you learned.
So every month, most mortgage holders pay their bills through what's known as an escrow account, where they don't just pay the principal and interest on their mortgage, but they also pay a portion of their tax payments and their homeowners insurance bills. And we use this data set to back out how much homeowners are paying in homeowners insurance. And we went from a state of the world where we had very little insight and data into how much homeowners were paying for insurance to a massive data set that represents the whole country's mortgage payers.
And by and large, they're paying a lot more, right?
They sure are. We're seeing a substantial increase in the amount that homeowners are paying in their insurance, nearly $1,000 more on average relative to just a few years ago. Insurance premiums have grown over 25% in real terms since 2019. So that means dramatically faster than the rate of inflation.
And especially so in areas with more climate risk?
That's right. One of the big findings of our study is that we're seeing insurance premiums increasing disproportionately in the riskiest part of the country. And so when you think about the kinds of risks that might be covered by homeowners insurance, whether that's wildfires, hurricane force winds, or severe convective storms, winter storms, and hail, those are the parts of the country where we see a disproportionate increase in the cost of insuring your home.
And you also found that this is showing up in housing prices. How so?
Well, when you're looking to buy a house, one of the things that should go into your decision-making is those kinds of ongoing costs, things like taxes or insurance that you're going to need to pay each and every year. And those kinds of things should be capitalized into the price that you're willing to pay. In other words, you're going to pay less for a house if it has these higher other associated costs with it. And we find that this seems to be passing through into the price that buyers are willing to pay for a new home. And so it looks like buyers understand that there is a cost associated with higher insurance bills, and they're willing to pay less for those houses. And that can substantially erode home values in the areas where insurance premiums have gone up the most.
So there are a lot of other reasons insurance premiums have been going up, right? I mean, inflation, the cost of rebuilding. A lot of people wonder, is this just profiteering? How can we parse, if we can, how much of this is really about increased climate risk versus other factors?
One of the big challenges with simply seeing an increase in insurance premiums is we don't know exactly which of the drivers is the key driver. And We see that certainly inflation and the cost of rebuilding is the biggest driver of insurance increases over this time period. But a less well understood driver is rising financial costs for insurance companies. And it's coming through the form of reinsurance. So reinsurance is insurance for insurance companies. And the cost of this reinsurance that an insurance company might take on in order to protect their risks has essentially doubled since 2017. And so what that means is that insurers are facing difficult choices in terms of continuing to write policies in these risky areas, increasing the premiums in those areas to reflect their higher costs, or maybe simply exiting those markets altogether.
So I heard a story on my local public radio station today, Colorado Public Radio, about a couple that had been putting off mitigating for wildfire at their house in the Boulder area until they got notification from their insurer that they were going to be dropped. And so they finally got around to doing it. And then a couple months later, actually a fire came through their neighborhood and their house survived it, which is amazing. But it made me wonder, are insurers beginning to reward people for hardening their homes in ways that could show up in lower premiums?
Yeah, there are a number of ways in which insurers are incentivizing resiliency investments. And a state like California now requires that all insurers provide some financial incentive to do so. But the challenge is that they write annual contracts. And so what you need is some sort of commitment from the homeowner standpoint that if I put this large investment in, that I'm going to see those long-term benefits. I'm going to see reduced insurance premiums going forward. And then ultimately, I want some comfort that this will be capitalized into my home value going forward. And I think the research is still out on whether we're going to see large enough discounts that will really move the needle on these kinds of potentially very costly upfront investments.
All right, Benjamin Keys, professor at the Wharton School. Thanks so much for sharing your research.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've got a podcast all about climate solutions. It's called How We Survive, hosted by yours truly. Check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. Coming up.
I mean, the first time I did it, I had no idea what I was doing.
Try again. But first, let's do the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 79 points, a 10% to close at 48,442. The Nasdaq climbed 133 points, about 0.6% to finish at 23,561. And the and the S&P 500 added 31 points, 0.5% to end at 6909. That's a record. We just heard about climate change and home insurance rates. While checking on a few insurers, Allstate ascended 0.6%, Chubb added 0.7%, Travelers tacked on 0.3%. Novo Nordisk jumped 7% and some change. The FDA approved the company's weight loss drug Wegovy in pill form. Johnson & Johnson says it'll appeal the verdict in another trial over talcum-based products. A Baltimore jury awarded $1.5 billion in punitive damages to a woman who says Johnson & Johnson's talc-based baby powder led to her cancer. Shares fell 0.7%. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by Mercury. Mercury is a fintech that helps entrepreneurs do more with their money. They offer banking, credit cards, invoicing, and more all in one place. Learn more at Mercury.com. And by Ascendium Education Group, which is committed to making education and training after high school a reality for learners from low-income backgrounds.
Whatever you're doing this holiday season, make it special with glorious music on the WQXR Classical Holiday Channel. You'll hear carols, sacred music, wintertime favorites, anytime you need a splash of holiday cheer. Listen at our sister station, WQXR.org, or find it on the WNYC app.
WNYC support comes from Mubi, presenting Father, Mother, Sister, Brother. Adam Driver, Cate Blanchett, and Tom Waits lead an ensemble cast in Jim Jarmusch's latest film, A Story of Family Reunions. Father, Mother, Sister, Brother is only in theaters this Christmas, rated R.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, the Trump administration says it wants oil companies to return to Venezuela, but some don't want to. Why would U.S. oil companies be against returning to a country with large oil reserves? We'll explore that and much more at 7. Stay tuned.
This is Marketplace. I'm Amy Scott. We started the show with a look at how consumer spending powered that strong GDP growth back in the third quarter, which again ended in September. But what about how that spending is holding up now during the biggest shopping time of the year? Well, a new report from the Conference Board shows consumer confidence dropped again this month for the 5th month in a row. But fresh retail spending data from the big credit card companies tells a different story. MasterCard says holiday spending is up 3.9% from November 1st through December 21st. Visa's number, 4.2%. And that doesn't count all those last-minute shoppers who may be hearing this on the way to pick up something or other. Marketplace's Kristen Schwab has more now on what the spending data says about the health of the U.S. consumer as we close out the year.
When did you start your holiday shopping? I ask because this year, consumers started earlier than usual, and that can signal excitement or anxiety, or maybe both.
My sense it's probably a combination of factors.
Michelle Meyer is chief economist at the MasterCard Economics Institute. And what she means is two things can be true at the same time. The boost in sales may show people are eager to spend and eager to save.
Consumers may have said, you know what, let me try to get the product that I know I want, get the gift that I know I need to have, and attempt to do it at the best price, which means to be engaged in the season earlier.
Mixed feelings in a mixed economy are reflected in the mix of categories performing well. Sales of electronics are up nearly 6%, according to Visa, which screams spend. Dining out is up more than 5%, according to MasterCard. Again, spend. Meanwhile, MasterCard says apparel sales are up nearly 8%. Jessica Ramirez, co-founder of the advisory firm The Consumer Collective, is labeling some of that one as save.
Consumers looking for like t-shirts and underwear and things of that nature. So core basics.
Ramirez says her surveys show a lot of people looked to replace essentials while they were on sale. David Swartz, a senior equity analyst at Morningstar, says the gap in the economy is growing. While upper-income Americans shell out for Coach bags and luxurious face creams, lower earners are increasingly funding the holidays with credit card and buy now, pay later debt.
Does appear that a lot of consumers continue to spend money that they may not exactly have.
The question is if it's debt they'll quickly pay off, and if everyone else will keep spending and juicing the economy.
You can never be sure until the season's over. And
data coming out over the next few months will be the true test of how consumers feel. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
All right, if I ask you to picture winter sports in the Great Lakes region, what comes to mind? Cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, maybe ice fishing? Well, what about surfing? People do it. When the temperature drops and the wind gets whipping, that's when a small but growing group of enthusiasts put on their wetsuits and hit the waves. Michigan Public's Laura Weber Davis has the story.
You might think water that's near freezing would be unattractive for surfers.
It doesn't feel too bad once you first run in, but as soon as it hits your chest, it kind of takes the breath away from you a little bit, and then when it hits your face, it just hurts.
That's Elias Brush. He's new to surfing on Lake Superior, generally the lake with the biggest, baddest waves. Brush and any surfer here will tell you that the hardest part of cold water surfing might actually be getting into the thick wetsuit. But those icicles that hang off of beards and eyelashes and cover their wetsuits, it's a bit like a badge of honor. Brush started surfing while he was a student at Northern Michigan University.
I mean, the first time I did it, I had no idea what I was doing. And then the first wave I caught, it was kind of accidental. And it kind of just picked me up and like tossed me forward.
He sent me a GoPro video of him catching that wave. He's smiling as he falls off backwards at the end of the ride.
But I was just like trying to get that feeling again. It's a really cool feeling.
Now Brush is in the market to buy his first board and a wetsuit of his own.
Like surfing in general, Great Lakes surfing is growing.
That's Chad Nelson. He's a surfing economist. Yep, that's a thing. He's also CEO of Surfrider, based in California. The advocacy group just opened a chapter in Chicago on Lake Michigan. Nelson calls his field surfonomics. He says surfers help grow traditional beach tourism. They surf about 100 days a year, and they go out earlier and later in the day than your typical beachgoer, which allows businesses to expand their hours.
And they spend a lot of money. Average surfer, when they go to the beach, they buy gas, they stop at the surf shop, they go out to breakfast or lunch.
And Nelson's research shows that spending has a big impact on beachside communities, large and small. The other thing about surfers and spending is they're often willing to travel for great waves.
Actually, there was just great waves in Lake Michigan. It lit up my Instagram, made me want to go.
Those waves he's talking about were over Thanksgiving weekend. Images of glassy aquamarine waves flew around social media. The waves on Lake Superior were 15 to 20 feet tall, and the water was just about 40 degrees. But pictures were coming in from different surf spots around the Great Lakes.
Everyone's like, oh, where is it going to work? And there is a lot of camaraderie, not only in the local community and the local scene, but Great Lakes wide. It's pretty cool.
That's Ella Scrocky. Her family owns Sleeping Bear Surf in Empire, Michigan on Lake Michigan. She says this is the season with wind and winter storms before the lakes start to freeze, when some of the very best surfing is possible. But Scrocky says it's important for safety reasons that people learn to surf in the Great Lakes first in the summer, when the waves are smaller and warmer.
We will get beautiful, beautiful waves all year round. You just kind of have to know where to look. But there is something really special about that wintertime glass, if you will.
Scrocky's family opened the surf shop more than 20 years ago, and she says business has only gotten bigger and better since then. She actually thinks social media has helped grow the sport in the last 5 years.
You know, I think it's like once people see what is possible, they're like, I want that too. I want a taste of that too. So it's been a really spectacular thing to see watching this community grow.
And that means her business can grow too. I'm Laura Weber Davis for Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Wealth Enhancement, offering its Wealth Blueprint plan through advisors nationwide. It integrates retirement, investing, taxes, and more into one plan. Learn more at wealthenhancement.com/build. And by Revenued, providing working capital for businesses whose cash flow is holding them back. Revenued approves businesses based on revenue, not credit, with funds approved and available in a day. More at getrevenued.com.
This final note on the way out today. Apparently, a lot of us are ignoring those fundraising appeals that pour in from nonprofits this time of year, at least according to a survey from the Associated Press and NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. About half those surveyed in early December said they'd already done their giving for the year. 18% said they donated money and still plan to again. 30%, though, said they don't plan to give at all this year. Still, it's not too late. Last year, Giving USA says total charitable giving grew to a new record of more than $592 billion, driven by stock market gains. Jordan Manji, Zonil Maharaj, Janet Wynn, Olga Oxman, and Virginia K. Smith are the digital team. I'm Amy Scott. We will see you tomorrow. This is APM.
WNYC receives support from